snap is back to hold us down.
And it's good. Gulfport wins. Gulfport wins the title.
No time on the clock. The Golden Egg is coming to the coast.
Welcome to the HD Experience, your source for sports on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Here's your host, Hunter Dawkins.
Good afternoon. My name is Hunter Dawkins. I am the host of the award-winning podcast, the HD Experience. This is the 45th episode of Mississippi Gulf Coast Sports Podcast, sponsored by the Gazebo Gazette, Harrison County's independent newspaper, the Beau Rivage Resort and Casino in Biloxi, which we'll be updating the advertisement stuff here in the future, Nine Toes Brewing Company in Pascagoula with their live music every weekend, O'Dwyer Realty Agent Stephanie Mankiewicz, Joseph Kelly's attorney at law, Coast Casual in Pascagoula, who has having some great summer deals, Insurance Barn in Gulfport, and we're always in the U.S. Marine Inc. studio. I'm here with my wonderful producer of the show, Jeff Clark. Jeff is a well-accomplished, award-winning journalist, South Alabama beat writer, the Harrison County Senior Services Director, and as well, my good friend, Jeff. How are you, my friend?
I'm well, Hunter. What a big weekend. The big 250 for America. Like one of my favorite Chicago songs, Saturday in the Park. It was actually the 4th of July was on a Saturday this year. Went down to Nine Toes, down to the Bungalows area. There was a big the Freedom Fest, Flat Franks and Freedom Fest was going on, sponsored by Nine Toes, Coast Casual. Street vendors, live music, hot dog eating contest. It was great, man. It was a great day. You know, Kirk and Bach were down there, like all the folks. It was a good time.
You know, Jeff, seeing your pictures that you sent to me and that I posted, you really couldn't tell the difference between that and Rockaway Beach
Right.
in New York. I mean, just talk to me about that.
It was cool. I know yesterday on 4th of July, I know Joey Chestnut. I think he ate 66 hot dogs to win in his in the Nathan's event. But man, the Nine Toes, the Tyler Kidd event was awesome, man. There were a lot of people who entered it. Lots and lots of people were down there watching it. So the winner was Brandon. And I texted Ty down at Nine Toes, was like, hey, what's Brandon's last name? He's like, man, all he put on his registration form was Brandon, the hot dog eating champion. And he lived up to that. So, it was great, man. There were so many people down there. I'm sure they're going to do it again next year. Coast Casual's got a thing coming up July 18th, another like nighttime walk and shop and sip and drink and kind of stuff, man. So there's, Caitlin and Tyler always got stuff going on down in that part of the world. It's a lot of fun.
Jeff, our theme for the day is another song that I know you really appreciate. Red Cards Shook Me All Night Long, basically based on the AC/DC famous Shook Me All Night Long song, with a little discussion about the penalties in soccer games and football games, or as you would say, not football de Norteamericano. But talk to me about that, and especially since you watched the World Cup match. And
again, man, I can't. These people are paid advertisers, so any opportunity I have to mention them, I'm going to. Me and Charlie and I, we go down to Nine Toes. We've been there for every game Team USA has played in. It was wild last Wednesday night, man. There were so many people in there when USA was playing. Who were they playing? Portugal? No, Bosnia Herzegovina. Yeah. And, tomorrow, Monday night, they'll be playing Belgium. So, man, my thing about penalties, I've seen what I consider to be some not so great calls in the World Cup that I've watched, not just against Team USA or in Team USA matches, but just overall. But you know, as an SEC fan, I think officiating in the SEC is probably at an all-time low. And I'm not whining because I'm an Alabama fan. Don't start writing me the hate mail. It has nothing to do with that. But I just feel like officiating in the SEC has gotten really bad. And hey, man, anytime I have a chance to mention this, I will. Officiating literally cost the New Orleans Saints an appearance in the Super Bowl.
Well, and that's one of the things that this episode is partially going to discuss is how sometimes, not all the time, almost all the time, officiating is not really something that determines the game's outcome. Well, and it didn't really determine the game's outcome in the U.S. Bosnia, but it could have presented a future. Although I heard that the player, striker, U.S. striker, the red card ban suspension was lifted today. But that being said, we'll talk more with our guests about that, and I look forward to getting on with these guys pretty soon, Jeff.
Yeah, again, I think in any sporting activity, you want to set yourself up for success so that you're not like, that so that officiating's not going to cost you a game or this or that, but it does. And it's got to be like super frustrating for the, I mean, it was frustrating for Sean Payton. It was frustrating for us as Saints fans. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I do like in baseball. I feel like baseball officiating's gotten better. It's come along more in the modern age, but we'll see. But you got a lot of great guests today who have a lot more things to say than I do. So let's go to our first commercial break, and we'll be right back.
The Gazebo Gazette is Harrison County's only independent newspaper,
Publishing news from Gulfport to Bay St. Louis every Friday.
Hi, this is Hunter Dawkins, owner of the Gazebo Gazette.
If you're looking for local news without the hassle of sorting through story after digital story,
log on to thegazebogazette.com.
Looking for effortless style on the coast? Discover Coast Casual in the Pass, your locally owned men's and boys' boutique. Coast Casual offers a mix of coastal and southern-inspired clothing, accessories, and gifts.
I would love to introduce my first guest, the 15-year head coach of the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College men's soccer team, Chris Handy. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good. When you say 15 years, it makes me feel old.
I'm right there with you, Coach.
Longevity is also definitely a positive thing for sure.
Coach, the first question would be, you've had a large group of players recently, especially, move on to the next level. Where do you find these players? And is it from high school coaches or teams? And, how do you grab the international players?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, for those that don't know that much about our conference is great. It is a great mix of in-state kids and international kids who have kind of mixed in. So for us in the work that we've done over the last 15 years, for the guys that have moved on, it's about half and half those kids, half Mississippi kids and half internationals that end up moving on. And so like for this particular group that just got off, we're very, very proud of, the Coast kids are well represented within that group. And so we're really, really proud of those guys that were kind of homegrown. The internationals, to be honest with you, the internationals are easier to recruit than the Coast kids are a lot of ways because they're very eager to get over. And so it's a lot of watching videos. A lot of people are reaching out to us just to say, hey, look at my kid. They have representatives a lot of times. So it's just a lot of film study, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's gut feeling, sometimes it's just contacts and people that you trust.
What about your relationship with the local high schools? I mean, do you have a pretty good solid, at least from certain areas, or is it mainly the select team coaches as well?
I mean, at this point, 15 years in, I think when I first got here, you had to spend a lot of time relying on, getting word of mouth. Who do you know is good, blah, blah, blah. After 15 years, you start to find out who's good already when they're about 14 or 15. And by the time that you become to the recruitable age, they played for 2 or 3 coaches already. You know what I mean? So it is, in the way that our conference has really grown, the recruiting process starts at like sophomore year a lot of times, and you see a kid that pops. I'm heavily involved in the select clubs. A lot of the other conference coaches are as well. And so you just end up kind of word of mouth a lot of times. And then in the culture that we've built at Gulf Coast, it is, a lot of players saying, hey, this guy fits our culture. You need to go after him. And then the players are doing a really, really good job now reaching out to the programs that they like. Different from years past when I first got here 15 years ago, the players that are growing up now are looking forward to going JUCO, particularly the elite ones, as opposed to where it used to be, where they were like, Coach, I'll come if I don't make a D1, if I don't make a D2. The majority, 95%, know they're going JUCO as they enter high school, and they're already starting to try to get on your radar.
Now, I'm not trying to throw you under the radar on these next few questions, but since you have a little bit of expertise in men's soccer, taking the theme off this episode, discuss with me about the rules and differences, and not only me, the audience as well, between red cards and yellow cards.
Well, interesting. I mean, yellow. To put it simply, yellow card's a warning. Red card is, you're done. Especially the international game, it's a little bit tighter than it is a college game, right? In the international game, if you get like 2 in a tournament, that's kind of a suspension. In junior college, if you get 2 in a game, it's suspension, but you can get up to 5 before you're suspended a game. As far as yellow cards, red cards, you get a red. You're supposed to sit the next game if it's a violent red, which is something outside the rules of the game. So okay, it's a punch, it's an elbow, it's something like that. It could be multiple games, it could be 2 games, it could even extend from there.
Coach, talk to me about, now I know this will be a little bit, I'm not necessarily sure how much, obviously I know you've got a lot of experience, but with the similarity of rulings that are made at the NJCCA soccer level and somebody like FIFA, is there any similarity in the way they make rules on that, or is there,
Well, I mean, I assume you're talking about like the recent news of Balogun getting unsuspended or whatever. That would never happen.
Yeah.
That is not something that would happen. I don't think even there's been times where being the kind of the older guy in the league, I get sent video all the time. Like, Coach, this is not a red card, or Coach, this is a red card. And my usual statement is just like, hey, there's nothing we can do about it. The game's over. So the idea that I've never heard, and it's 15 years of Gulf Coast, 20 years of college coaching, I've never heard of a red card being rescinded. So this is all very new. You know what I mean? But our game is not money driven. There's no politics in it. It's just simply.
Well, at least not at your level. At the Division I level, there might be a little bit more money.
At Division I level is definitely money driven, which is why I love JUCO, to be honest with you. So the idea that you can rescind, even though I felt the same way a lot of people felt, like it was a bit of a harsh threat, didn't even call a foul on the play, but. Once the game's over, and you kind of live with the consequences of it. It's kind of just the sport of it. Being a U.S. fan, was I excited that he had potential to play? Absolutely. But do I think the right thing to do is to be going behind the game and changing the yellow card? Are we going to change goals now? I think that's a bit of a stretch when it comes to sport.
Sure. Is playing in the fall, and I know this has probably been a question you've been asked before, but is playing in the fall instead of in the winter difficult in relation for the players down here versus the international players who are used to that?
I don't think so. Soccer's really become a year-round sport now. A lot of our incoming freshmen or a lot of our sophomores that are returning spend the summer playing on summer league teams and that kind of stuff. These guys never stop, to be honest with you. And we say this to a lot of recruits. We say this to a lot of our players. We want them to try to take some breaks, but our off season a lot of times is harder than our season. because they're, you're in the off season, you're not playing games. Before you play a game, you have a rest day beforehand, you have a rest day after. And off season, it's just full go all the time. So, the interesting thing about coming in the fall, the hardest part is just trying to speed up that learning curve. Probably the most interesting year that we've ever had was the COVID year. We played in the spring, and basically you had 4 months to develop players. And that was a really, really fun year. What I want to do that, year after year, I'm not sure. But I think, with the international players coming in, depending on which country they're coming from, I think the thing that they struggle with most is just acclimating to the weather, how hot it is, how physical it is. Particularly our game that's so up and down because of the free substitution. They don't really have that overseas. So the hard part for them is to realize how much pressure they're under constantly because everyone's playing in a high press because everyone can sub off. That is probably the hardest transition as opposed to just kind of the time of year that we play.
Coach, final question. What kind of relationship do you have with these Division I coaches? Obviously pretty decent because you had a number of players in the last few years, move up that level. And especially though has this changed with the NIL era, as we spoke about.
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to figure out the ramifications of the changes, not even just the NIL, but also the roster limitations, which is kind of probably the biggest thing that kind of affects us is, if we have a guy that's kind of on the bubble of a Division I player, but he has the experience of our league, sometimes you can sneak him onto a roster and say, hey, just give him a chance and prove himself. That's not really happening anymore. Now we have to send ready-made players to the Division I level and say, hey, they're going to be ready to go day one. But, the Division I's aren't recruiting freshmen like that anymore. So our guys are also becoming a little bit more valuable. They're coming out with grades. They're coming out with experience. One of the things that I've always preached to the Division I's when I talk to them is the guys that you're getting out of our program and some of the other programs in the state are guys that have been responsible for winning from day one, as opposed to, say, a freshman or a transfer that hasn't been able to get on the field as much, which is why they're transferring. They're not responsible for helping their team win. If we don't win a game, it's because our players didn't play well. Usually, sometimes we mess it up as coaches, but usually they didn't play well. So they have to get better, and they know that, and that's why our players are coming out ready-made. As far as our so-called connections, yeah, we know lots of people at Division I. When you've been in this game as long as we have, we have former players that are coaching at the Division I level. That helps a lot. You just have friends that are coaching at Division I level. That helps a lot. But really and truly nowadays, it's just about the amount of work that we're willing to put in to find our kids a place. In addition to that, there is 4 years so expensive. The most important thing that our players can do is come in and get their education and post that high GPA. And that does have to work for us. Our goods have some of the best grades in the state. And so now we can talk to Division I and say, hey, come give our kid, 20%, 50%, let their academics do the rest of the work. And then you got a really, really good player for a cheap cost. But we've also been doing this, like you said, beginning 15 years. So going way back to Jordan Paul, who's now our women's assistant coach, who was a star player for us when he was scoring goals for UConn and Rutgers 10 years ago now. Our name has been built. And so we have a lot of history to look back on for us to say, hey, we do know how to develop a player. We do know a player that can contribute. And so over our last, 15 years to put double-digit kids at the Division I level, that having that high reputation has been really, really important for us to get our kids across the finish line.
Coach, we gratefully appreciate you being on, and we hope you guys have a really great, successful season, and we hope we'll have you on again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It should be fun.
Nine Toes Brewing Company is a Gulf Coast destination for craft beer, great food, and interactive entertainment. Enjoy a rotating selection of small batch brews, a menu of comfort food favorites, and state-of-the-art golf simulators featuring world-famous courses.
Looking for insurance coverage you can count on? Call the Insurance Barn, a professional agency since 1959. The Insurance Barn writes all-in-one policies and offers coverage for homeowners, fire, flood, commercial property, auto, boats, motorcycles, plus wind and hail protection.
To introduce my friend and one of the experts in high school football across the Mississippi Gulf Coast, who fans, students, coaches, and scouts follow through Twitter and Facebook. Mad Stats, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Hunter, it's great to be on the award-winning HD experiment HD podcast, and congratulations on the award. You and Jeff are doing a great job, coming up on a year of doing the podcast, and it is certainly getting around, not just on the coast but statewide. And congratulations on that, and happy birthday to the USA. So great time of the year.
Absolutely. And we thank you, Matt. And, as we've been talking about, with these discussions, at least, with Coach Handy, at least in the Mississippi Gulf Coast soccer, also, too, I want to ask you a little bit of historical, conferences, at least, that we talked about. Talk to me about the past conferences of teams on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, because, we're trying to see where this is going to happen, at least after, not so much this year, but after next year, when you have the multipliers that are instituted, at least from the private schools. Is there any real history of conferences for teams on the Mississippi Gulf Coast?
As far as they have different eras, I bring it up every year. I just put up the state champions from 1981 when this current format is being played since 1981, and every time I do and say Gulfport, just won their first state championship, I'm certainly corrected by the fans. No, Gulfport has 3 to 4 state championships. Well, not in this era. They had an era, and I have it break it down on the Facebook page, where in 1920s and 1949 they did have early playoff experiments there between those dates, and in 1950 to 1980 they did have conference eras, which they had Pascagoula Conference, which they had teams, with the Iberville, East Central. I mean, they had a lot of winning ways there. Buddy Singleton, coach of the Iberville, that's where he earned his winning ways there. But they didn't have a system to where they decided a state championship. They didn't have a statewide like they do now, the North versus the South. Here's your state champion. They did have, and I explained it, in what I did post on the Facebook page. So they did have champions then, but were they state champions? They do have trophies because they posted it on my Facebook page. Hey, we got a golden ball, but it's not, I don't want to say technically, and we're certainly not just, saying you didn't win one, but in this era from 1981 to currently, this is a system how it's done. We do recognize, as I posted on the Facebook page, and I have, like I said, Big 8 conference they had there, and that's when Gulfport, Pascagoula, that's when you're talking about when they won state champions chips. So we have a lot of history on the coast, and like I say, with the Big 8, the other Pascagoula conference. So a lot of great teams that were back then, and we don't want to overlook them. It's great to have those players and coaches acknowledged.
Well, and that's a great segue, Matt. We're talking about, the state championships were not determined then. However, there were these regional matchups. Was there schedules made based on the conferences, or were there just schools just made up whoever they were going to play at this time frame? Do you remember?
No, well, I mean, again, it's posted on the Facebook where they have the latest one, last one in 1980, George County won that conference, Gulf Coast Conference, over Ocean Springs, Long Beach, Harrison Central, Stone. It was 5 in that division there. And part of what I posted, which kind of explains exactly how it was breaking down in those certain areas, in that from 1970 to 1980, if I could find it here, I just had it up here. But so yes, there's definitely a certain the way they did it, the criteria on how they decided. Here it is right here. From 1950 to 80, teams played large regional conference, Big 8, DeSoto, Apache, Pine Belt. The goal was to win your conference, not a state title. Postseason football was through bowl games, Shrimp Bowl. I remember that in Biloxi. They still gotta have one. The Red Carpet Bowl. Sportswriter selected mythical state champions is how they worded on my Facebook page. Big 8 champs were often viewed as the unofficial large school state champions before 1981. And that's how state titles were media based, not playoff based. That was between 1950 and 1980. And then, of course, currently it changed in 1981 and based on, actually started 1A, 2A, and now it's 1 through 7 as we know it now. The brackets, first round, all the way up to state championship is decided on the field. And so, it's just a more statewide, where between 1950 and 1980, you had your bowl games and you didn't have a North versus a South and say, okay, this is your state champion in 1A, 5A, 6A, and so forth. So, and again, it's on my Facebook page, and we certainly, like I say, don't deny that they won championships. Was it state championships? I've seen pictures where it says 1975 Gulfport won a state championship. It's not in the same, as it is now, but still great teams, that we have had and still have on the coast.
Well, the final question, my friend, and I know it's just a little bit short-lived, but this might seem like a little bit of a curveball, but did these conferences, were they run by an officiating organizations that you know of? Was there a sort of the Big 8 conference had a determination of how the rules, the officials, and things as such were made, or was there just a kind of just a group of donors or so brought together? That's what my big question was, because obviously with the discussion about referees and penalties and things like that, that was also a question I had for me on my mind. I'm not sure how well you know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, as far as when the MHSAA, which is Mississippi Athletic, Association, what was covered over those, since 1920s when they started, the first school started here on the coast. I don't know the exact who was governing those teams, and how that was decided. But again, I know it was, there was not a state champion decided, again, how I just mentioned about the bowl games. And, people bring up about college football, where before now we have these playoff system. Well, the teams that won prior to that, we're not going to not recognize that this team won a national championship in the 60s or 70s, because now the playoff system is different. So they're trying to say it the same way. Now we got 1981 the current. We recognize those state champions, to where back before 1980, we'll still recognize them. But when I put out my information, I don't put out Gulfport has won 5 state champions. They've won 1 state champion in this era. I do put in the little corner established in 1981. So, we'll have that set there. And speaking of state champions, I did post, in which I don't know if you're aware of, I believe I shared it with you. We knew the location, Mississippi State. The state championships will be decided, as they always are, the week after Thanksgiving, December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The times have changed, as they do every year, the time as far as the teams and when they play. Gulfport last year finished the state championship weekend, 7 o'clock. You were there. I was watching on live stream, 7 o'clock on Saturday night. Well, this year, Gulfport makes it back, or hopefully a coast team, that 7 o'clock Friday, December 4th, will be 7:30. They'll play the state championship for 7A. So I have it's all changed. Everything is practically changed. 5A will finish off the state championship. Thursday is 4A and 6A is the state championships at 4 and 7:30. And then Friday is 2A and 7A, 4 and 7:30. And then Saturday, that triple header, 1A is at 12, 3A, 3:30, which we don't have. And 5A is at 7. So 5A will finish it off this year. And this was, on the website, MHSAA, where I got the information from. So time change, but it's still at Mississippi State this year. We'll see where it goes next year. But again, that's all the information on my Facebook page. So you can make your, hotel reservations now. Get ready.
There you go. Well, Matt, sorry we had to cut it short here, but that being said, we will have you on here soon, because just as you know, high school football is right around the corner, my friend.
It is. We had 8 weeks, and when people are listening to this, we have about 50 days left till kickoff on that August 28th, and we're going to get you from here to there. We'll have the toughest schedule, which the last 2 years it was Ocean Springs, and last year West Harrison. I can tell you a little snippet because I've already done it. It's not neither one of those teams will have the coast's toughest schedule. They'll be, they're going to be in the top 10. We shall see. So a little sneak peek here on the podcast. It won't be West Harrison or Ocean Springs. They got tough schedules, but they are not the toughest schedule. And that's one thing you'll bring me back on, hopefully, to talk about that. A lot of things to come.
We can't wait. We can't wait, my friend. You take care.
Yes. All right. Stats out.
Looking for trusted legal guidance on the Mississippi Gulf Coast? Joseph Kelly, attorney at law, has been serving the coast since 1993, helping families protect what matters most. From estate planning to securing your legacy, Joseph Kelly provides experienced, personalized legal services designed around your unique needs.
I'd like to introduce one of my good friends, Heath Hinton, the editor and sports writer of Big Gold Nation. How are you, my friend?
Hey, buddy. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I heard you have a story that was released the other day. Talk to me about that and what your thoughts are about where Southern Miss is at right now in basketball.
Yeah, I had an informant. I could talk to somebody, my source, and telling me about Sunbelt basketball meetings this past year. And believe it or not, only 3 of the 14 coaches showed up to the meeting. Now, granted, Texas State was leaving, so you kind of don't expect them to show up, and Louisiana Tech was not a member yet to take their spot, so I wouldn't expect them to show up. But only 3 of the 14 coaches showed up to the meeting. And supposedly this all stems from coaches being upset because they felt like their voices are not being heard. They feel like their ideas are not being implemented, and I suppose the overall feeling is, what are we doing this for? They're not fans of the MAC Sunbelt Challenge. Feel like late in the season when you have to go on the road in the middle of conference play, the conference stretch leading to the tournament, especially when you're only a one-bid league, and you're having to play a game that doesn't matter. You get one of your top players hurt in a league that's not deep anyway. Take that chance, and it's not moving the needle at all.
Sure.
It didn't help Ohio last season. They went 33-1. What were they, like a 16, like a really low seed? I don't think the Sunbelt MAC Challenge had any help in their seeding. So it's just there's not a lot of, I guess you would say there's not a lot of talking between the Sunbelt office and the coaches, and it's just getting kind of, things need to change. You're not gonna get things settled by not showing up to the meeting, and I think that's something that's got to be handled.
Heath, unlike the other 2 main sports, does there appear any likelihood the Sun Belt will be able to produce any real basketball prowess this next year?
It's going to be a one-bid league. Let's just be honest, especially with the way that they set up net rankings and different things like that. It's going to be hard for a group of 6 conference to get multiple teams in. Even the NIT, they've changed to where it really caters to the power conferences now. To get into the dance, you have to win the league. And I just don't see the league being strong enough to get multiple teams in. Now, there may be an outlier that goes on a run, maybe loses 2 or 3 games, and maybe they get in that large bid. But even at that, even if you only lose 2 or 3 games this season, you're probably still going to have to win the conference tournament to get into the big dance. So I don't see this season or maybe next 2 seasons that changing very much. And it's hard on Sunbelt schools, because think about it, because of profit sharing, you've got to create money to buy teams. So how do you do that? Well, you can't go out and get these power teams to come in and play, because they're not going to come to your facilities and play. They're going to want you to go there. So you have to go there and play the games because you need the money that you get for those buy games. But also in the same sense, you're not having any excitement for your home schedule, so fans could go out and buy season tickets. So it's a catch-22. What the remedy is, I'm not sure, but I'm not. One thing we do know is that it's affecting the players and the fans of the Sun Belt, and I just don't know if it's going to change anytime soon.
Heath, final question for you, my friend. Giving you a Vegas projection of the 2026 USM football is 3.5 wins. Does this appear to be accurate, or is it way under what it should be?
I think it's fair considering what you got. You lost 98% of your any production off the team last year. I mean, you got a new quarterback. You got one running back that's back that played some, one offensive lineman on the defense. You may have one guy. Everybody else is new. There's not a spring portal period like they had last year where Coach Huff could bring other people in. And once they went through spring to figure out who was good, who wasn't, they didn't have that. They spent the whole spring implementing. I talked to Blake Anderson about it. I said, "Do you have a 2 deep?" He said, "No." He said, "Be honest with you, I barely know who the 73 that are going to travel are." So, yeah, 3.5, considering what they have, I think that's fair. I don't think Vegas is looking at to throw shade on Southern Miss. I think if you just look at the situation, how are you going to say anything more than that? Now, could they win more? Sure. But there's a lot of work to do on that football team before we can get to that point.
Hey, my friend, it's always good to talk to you. Tell everybody how they can reach you and how they can get in touch with what you guys are doing.
Yeah, go to On3 Big Gold Nation. Just Google Big Gold Nation. Look us up. The stories on there about the basketball coaches, an interesting read, and we have a lot of fun on the board banner, a lot of recruiting, a lot of inside information that you get. So come be a member, and I appreciate you having me on and let me tell people about it.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, buddy.
I would like to introduce one of the legends of Mississippi football for his 3 decades of coverage and recruiting in Mississippi State football, Steve Robertson, who is the host of the Boneyard podcast, owner of genespage.com, and a sports writer for 247 Sports. Steve, I have seen numerous articles and early predictions of the Mississippi State Bulldogs' potential 2026 football record. And the Vegas odds are 3.5 games of wins. Is that fair?
Well, I think it's one of those things, the proof's in the pudding, right? But I'm taking the over on it, even though I know it's a difficult schedule. But it always is when you're Mississippi State in the Southeastern Conference. But yeah, I honestly think this team can get to 6 wins, and I think you need to in order to avoid a coaching change. But yeah, I mean, people are going to be down on this team just because of the fact that you've got basically a freshman quarterback, and you've got a lot of new faces, and it's 3 straight portal classes where you felt like you'd take a step forward. I thought they did last year, and the hope is they take another one this year.
Steve, what games or how many does Coach Jeff Lebby have to win to secure his spot for another year?
Well, that's a great question. I would say probably 6. I think you've got to get bowl eligible and earn it. I don't think you can rely on the 5-7 APR thing. But they've got some winnable games early. October is brutal.
Yeah.
You can't come out of September with a losing record. You can be no worse than 2-2. You probably need to be 3-1 coming out of September because they may not win a game in October. Now things kind of even out for you a little bit in November, but man, that stretch in October is going to be brutal on the fan base.
Mississippi State has one of the toughest schedules, as you talked about, in the SEC. Is there any security given to the donors or to the fan base by Zach Selman if they do not become bowl eligible? But let's say they pick up a win they're not necessarily supposed to. Is there something that you think that Selman's going to try to be able to create some validity for what they've got?
Well, I think those pleas would probably fall on deaf ears. I mean, you got to win games. It's as simple as that. This is a program that has not had a winning season since Mike Leach passed away. And enough time has passed, you should be able to overcome that, especially with the NCAA transfer portal, right? You've committed more resources than ever financially to the procurement of players for this roster. And so, you've got to see some fruits of that labor. And it's difficult to go back to those same donors and say, hey, we need more money. We need more money when, they may look at it and say, hey, 3 years into this, it's just not working the way we thought. So we'll invest in a new coach, but we're maybe not going to throw more money after this one.
Give me your thoughts about the offensive and defensive line for the Bulldogs, because that's where the biggest questions are, because nobody's really quite sure where they're at.
Well, I think the interior offensive line is going to be really good. I mean, you get Cannon Boone back, you bring in LJ Prudhomme, you got a handful of guys kind of competing for that left guard spot. I think they feel really good about where they are there. Miles McVay appears to be probably the anointed left tackle at this point, and he has played upside the line his entire career, played some left tackle at North Carolina as well. So it's not foreign to him, but he's really kind of a right tackle playing left tackle. And so, they're going to have to coach him up and kind of get him ready. Defensive line-wise, I think the group is going to be better. And I think not just because of upgrades in personnel, but I think schematically, with Zach Arnett calling the shots, they're going to be better just because of the fact they're going to be more unpredictable. One of the things that we talked about when they hired Coleman Hutzler, and listen, God bless Coleman Hutzler, did the best he could. It just wasn't good enough, right? When you go out and get a guy from Texas or Alabama, you can't run Texas or Alabama schemes without the talent available at those schools and expect to get the same results. If I go out there and I can get the top 25 players and you got to play with the leftovers, I'm going to beat you 9 times out of 10, right? So you have to be a little bit different at Mississippi State. And I think Zach Arnett brings an edge and brings a scheme that should level the playing field a good bit.
Final question for you, Steve. How are the state players looking in USA baseball right now, and what's the potential for the state players this year in the MLB draft upcoming?
Yeah, those are two complicated questions, but of course we got answers to Team USA today. State led the country with 4 players invited to the trials, and Ryan McPherson makes it for the second straight year, and then Tico Valenkas makes it. He went to trials last year, didn't make the squad, makes it this year. Jack Bauer and Jacob Parker go as freshmen, didn't make it. I suspect they'll make it next year. That's just kind of how the thing works if you perform well. But, State had 8 high school signees invited to the MLB Combine, which is the most in the country. You'll lose some of those guys. I would say you probably end up getting 5 of those 8 to campus, and it's a pretty big class anyway. Last year, you had 4 guys that were projected in the top 100 or so. You got 2 of those 4 to campus. If you can get 5 or 6 of those guys to campus, I think you feel really good about your class. Now, Brian O'Connor is the ultimate competitor. He wants all 8. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm glad he feels that way because that's what he was paid to do.
There you go, my friend. Hey, it's good to talk to you. Tell everybody in the audience where they can reach you.
Yeah, I'm on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. And, of course, they can come check us out at genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports.
Thank you, my friend. It's always good to talk to you.
See you next time.
If you are thinking about selling on your own, maybe ask Steph. If you would like to talk to Stephanie to help determine your next steps, call today at 228-563-0471 or call her at the office and ask for Steph at 228-452-4242.
Looking for insurance coverage you can count on? Call the Insurance Barn, a professional agency since 1959. The Insurance Barn writes all-in-one policies and offers coverage for homeowners, fire, flood, commercial property, auto, boats, motorcycles, plus wind and hail protection.
Now I would love to introduce my final guest from Jambalaya News in New Orleans, Cesar Munoz. Cesar, talk to me about the matchups between Mexico versus England, USA versus Belgium, and how men's soccer has been developing for North America.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Hunter. It's a pleasure to be in your program. And also a great hello to each and one of your fans out there in Mississippi and Alabama and wherever they find themselves. As you are well aware, I am a big, huge soccer aficionado.
Yes, sir.
Where I have traveled throughout the United States. In fact, I just arrived a couple of minutes ago from Dallas, Texas, and that I watched the Aussies lose against Egypt on Friday 2-0. Well, soccer has taken a huge step here in the United States from 1994, where FIFA, in a private meeting, told the United States, we'll award you the 1994 World Cup if you, in 2 years' time, after that, establish a professional soccer league. The United States said, of course. And so what happened? 2 years after, the United States established Major League Soccer. I'm happy to say and talk about it that I was part of the development of refereeing in the United States because I was a national referee here for a long time. In the state of Louisiana, the first one in the state of Louisiana, the first Hispanic ever in the history of soccer in Louisiana to ever become a national referee, and the first one from the city of New Orleans. So a long history, a long soccer here in the United States with me. And of course, with the World Cup going on now here in the United States, Mexico, and Canada, it is just a tremendous, tremendous pleasure sitting down and watching and analyzing each and every game that I watch, which I have watched practically all of them. Now, with that being said, England and Mexico. England, of course, if anybody out there in your audience and that has followed soccer, they must realize and must remember that in 1986, England paid a huge, huge price against Argentina and Diego Maradona. Okay? In the semifinals of the World Cup, Diego Maradona, in the first goal he scored, he called it the hand of God, which, I was there in 1986 and I watched both of those goals. The first one, which was not a pretty goal, it was the hand of God, which it should have been called. Everybody in the universe saw the hand except the referee and the assistant referee. Well, England had to bite its tongue with that. Then came perhaps as known as the greatest goal ever scored by an individual player in this time, Diego Maradona, who scored, taking the ball from the halfway line and taking on 6 or 7 different defenders to go to the top of the 6 and scored a brilliant goal that forever will be in the lores of soccer heaven, soccer World Cup. Okay? So now they are in Mexico to play Mexico in a quarterfinal match. And the winner goes to the to the quarterfinals. The winner goes to Miami to play Norway. Okay, who just defeated Brazil here an hour or two ago, 2-0. Do I think and do I want England to get revenge? Yes, I do. Yes, I do, because I think that the gods, the soccer gods, owe them a trip to the next round. But along the way stands a Mexican team who has been playing lights out. Lights out.
Yes, sir.
They have been playing in front of their own fans, and the Aztec Stadium hosts approximately 88,000 people, down from 105 years ago. It was considered one of the largest stadiums in the world, which in the 86 World Cup, I visited, and afterwards I visited several times for different games. This match between England and Mexico is going to be a very entertaining match, although the games have been postponed an hour. It's been delayed by an hour because there's rain and there's lightning strikes over there. And of course, the laws of the game say if there's rain along with lightning, for each time that there's a lightning strike, you must delay the game 30 minutes or so. Well, they already made the call that they're going to wait an hour. So instead of starting at 7, it's going to start at 8. Okay, 9 o'clock Mexican time. And that's the keys to this game. The British team must have Harry Kane at his best game, Jude Bellingham at his best game, with Declan Rice also at his best, Sinclair at his best. The entire England national team must be in their A game as it's called, okay, or it's said.
Sure.
So will Mexico. Mexico's going to want to be in the A game because they want to win during this last game at the Aztec Stadium. They want to win this game to move on to the next round. Who's going to win? I would love to see England win, but Mexico stands in the way. That's that game. The United States, Belgium, it's well known that the leading scorer for the United States, Boneyard, was red carded, sent off in the game against Bosnia Herzegovina. In a situation that I was incensed by the red card. Why? Because in the very first game that Argentina played, Messi committed the same type of foul, if not worse, and was not sent off. As a former national referee and a FIFA candidate, I said, well, maybe the refereeing program had told the referees for this tournament, you must watch those type of plays, and that set the precedent for the rest of the tournament. And then we get this big surprise last Wednesday. I was very stunned. But on the way in Dallas, as I was coming home at Love Field, I see that the news bulletin that Bellingham is going to be able to play today. I don't know what strings the United States Soccer Federation pulled along the way, but the suspension was lifted. Okay? And then there's also, and I have to say this because this is not soccer, what happened today. Okay? This is not soccer. No politics should be involved in soccer.
Agreed.
That is against the laws of the game, and it's against the applications that administrative-wise that FIFA has. President Donald Trump said that was the best decision that FIFA could have taken. I beg to differ. That's not the best way, because now you're setting a bad precedent that anybody else could appeal and have their suspension lifted. Is it good for soccer? No, it's not. At least in my view, it's not.
Well, my friend, that was the segue to the next question. How big of an impact was the reverse of this decision? You know, is this not only just a North American soccer impact? Is this a entire world through the judgment of FIFA? It's almost like, well, who's making the decisions for FIFA? Have they established rules, or is this just based on what everybody thinks the outcome should be?
I think that because of what I originally said with the initial play in the Senegal-Argentina game, that Argentina won 3-0 with the hat trick by Messi. After his first goal, he should have been sent off, because it's the same type of play where the studs come up to the thigh of the lower portion of the leg, okay, of the defender at that time. And not only does it go, it is serious, dangerous, serious foul play. And serious foul play as it's in the application of the laws of the game, Law 12 of fouls and misconduct, such serious foul play should be a sent-off, a red card. And that, I was stunned, and so were so many other people in the soccer world, in the high-level refereeing. They were stunned because Mr. Messi was not sent off. Now, here a week after, or 2 weeks after, Balogun, not intention, by no means was there any intention to hurt the Bosnian player. There was none, because they were both battling. It was a 50-50 ball where, unfortunately, Balogun stepped on that guy's leg and twisted the ankle. I'm glad that the defender from Bosnia was not seriously hurt, because then that would have been a different story, because we don't want anybody getting hurt seriously. Now, it should have been a red card? Yes, it was a red card. It should have been a sent off? Yes, he should have been sent off. What is not correct was what happened between yesterday and this morning. That the FIFA, the referee committee, lifted the suspension on the United States striker by lifting the suspension, and that is not. That's not the way soccer should be. If there was an appeal by the United States Soccer Federation to the FIFA referee committee, it should have been last week, right after the match.
Sure.
Not 4 or 5 days later. It's setting a bad precedent for future infractions such as that.
Caesar, is there any correlation between this U.S. men's national team right now? Now, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or in the future, but is there any correlation between this soccer team and the 1980 hockey team in Lake Placid, where they were up against the best of the best, but they took advantage because obviously with their motivation and their build and all that?
Well, there is, because you're playing in front of your own crowd. At that time, remember, it was the U.S. hockey team versus the Russians, the number one powerhouse in amateur, quote-unquote, amateur hockey at that time being played. Well, yes, they won. The United States won, ending however many years of frustration of, winning a gold medal. Okay, so the United States did. But this team that the United States had in soccer, and with Mauricio Pochettino, the skipper, as we call it in soccer, or the coach, okay, as it's called here in the United States. This is a great golden opportunity for the United States. If the United States can beat Belgium tomorrow night, in which I'm hoping that it does, because although not born here in the United States, but being raised in the United States, I want the United States to win, because it will also propel the United States community, soccer community, to bigger and better things. As it is now, the majority of its team, and I think that out of the 26 that are on the roster, at least 20 play outside of the United States in the big leagues, in Serie A in Italy, La Liga in Spain, the Bundesliga in Germany, the Ligue 1 in France, and the Premiership. Those are the big five in Europe. But they're also playing in Turkey. They're also playing in Belgium. They're also playing in Netherlands. So all of these players have that international experience. And that's why, as you see the game, as it's played, as it develops, the United States has a lot of good players. Now, what is lacking here is that the United States, other than Pulisic, it doesn't have any well-known, established names per se. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Ronaldo, Messi, those big names. No, they don't have that big name. Pulisic has a name here in the United States, but across the pond, across the Atlantic, he's well known with Inter Milan, one of the bigger clubs in the world, okay, that he plays for. That's it. Other than that, no one else.
Okay, my friend, final question for you. Now, this I know as you, with your experience as an official, how big of it is an impact? And this isn't only in soccer, this is in any sport. How big of an impact is it as an official to make a call or make the right call in the game?
Well, as we have seen it, we've seen it in the Belgium game here a couple of days ago. It was made in the Germany, in the other game, Paraguay, here a couple. It's been within the last week where last minute decisions were made. Now, they were not made by the referee. They were not made by the referee. If you allow me to extend myself and explain that, the referee had called, had blown the whistle, which in one he thought it was a penalty, but he wasn't real sure until the VAR, the video assistant referee, called them and said, "Come review it here." Okay, and I dare say that they're the ones that made that call. Okay, they're the ones that made that call in the PK where Belgium won in the very last 2 minutes, and it escapes me the other game where in the last 3 or 4 minutes another goal was scored because the VAR told the referee, "Come look at it, then make a decision." I'd say, that technology is always good. Technology is always good, but it also has made very, very critical decisions where it put the referee on the spot where he had to make a call when he or she weren't ready to make that call. Okay? So this is going to have an impact in every sport here in the United States. In every sport. It's going to be in the NFL. It's going to be in the NBA. It's going to be in Major League Soccer. It's going to be in Major League Baseball. You name it. And it's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact. Let's just go to the disciplinary committee and let's talk about it. Let them hear what I have to say. It's going to have an impact, a huge impact. And this what they did today, it's a huge impact on the world of refereeing.
Well, my friend, we thank you, and tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
Well, they can do it by, I'll give you my telephone number. My cell phone is 504-352-0290. Or you can email me at ceasar762@yahoo.com. That's my personal email at yahoo.com. ceasar762@yahoo.com.
And if they want, can they find you on JambalayaNews.com?
Yes, Jambalaya Multimedia. You can look for Football Ibas, meaning and translating Football Plus, because I don't only just talk about soccer, but I speak about all the other different sports.
We thank you, Sergeant. We take care of yourself.
Thank you very much, Hunter. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
United States Marine Inc. knows what it means to show up strong. Your grit and teamwork inspire us every day. At USMI, we cherish our family, and our family includes community and you. USMI builds the baddest boats with pride and coastal toughness.
Gratefully appreciate you listening to this podcast. And Jeff, we thank you again. We want to thank all of our sponsors, including the Beau Rivage Resort and Casino in Biloxi, Nine Toes Brewery in Pass Christian, O'Dwyer Realty Agent Stephanie Mankiewicz, Joseph Kelly's Attorney at Law, Coast Casual in Pass Christian, the Insurance Barn in Gulfport, and the U.S. Marine Inc. Make sure you follow us on YouTube under Gazebo Gazette Productions. Am I right about that, Jeff?
That's it. Gazebo Gazette Productions on YouTube. You can find HD Experience and the Mudcat Report, all of them right there.
And on the award-winning website, the GazeboGazette.com, where the podcast will be posted sometime this next week, as well as on Facebook.com/The Real Gazebo Gazette, or on X as Gazebo Gazette as the handle. The HD Experience is available on all podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or anything you can find podcasts on under the HD Experience tag. Signing out, this is Hunter Dawkins, the host of the HD Experience. We'll catch you on the flip side.